The town that disappears every full moon. Part 1. The Man Who Saw Briar Hollow. I was 27 years old the night I first heard about Briar Hollow. It was the autumn of 1954, a cold October that came early and left the Kansas plains soaked in fog. I'd been on the road for nearly a week, driving a rusted Ford pickup west toward Denver, trying to forget a job that had ended poorly and a marriage that had ended worse. The radio was little more than static by then, the roads nearly empty, and I remember thinking how strange it was that the world could feel so quiet when the moon was so bright. I stopped for gas in a small place called Eller's Junction, one of those forgotten dots on the map where a diner, a pump, and a single payphone make up the entire economy. The man at the counter was old, his face carved with deep lines like a dry riverbed. When I asked him how far until the next town, he glanced at the moon through the window before answering. "You're not thinking of going through Briar Hollow tonight, are you?" I frowned. "Never heard of it." He chuckled without humor. "Most people haven't, and those who have wish they hadn't." Something about the way he said it. It wasn't joking. It wasn't even cautious. It was resigned, like someone talking about the weather or a neighbor's death. He leaned on the counter. "Every full moon, that place ain't there. Road runs straight through an open field, nothing but mist and fences. Then, come morning, the town's back again, like it never left. Lights on, mail delivered, people going about their business." I laughed a little, thinking he was spinning a tall tale for the out-of-towner. "You mean it disappears? Like, poof?" He didn't smile. "You'll see." I should have listened, but curiosity has always been my downfall. I filled up the tank, tipped my hat, and followed the highway west. The air was colder than it should have been, the kind of chill that seeps into your bones. The moon followed me like an unblinking eye. About an hour later, I saw the sign, Briar Hollow, Pop 612. Except there was no town. The road cut through a wide valley filled with silver mist. The moonlight spilled over the empty fields, glinting off fence wire and old telegraph poles. I slowed the truck, headlights sweeping across the nothingness. The sign was there, plain as day, but beyond it, no lights, no buildings, not even the shape of a road leading in. And then I heard it, a bell, soft, faint, like it came from under the ground. It chimed once, twice, then stopped. I should have kept driving. I should have taken that as my warning, but instead I pulled over, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped into the fog. The air felt wrong, still, heavy, like the world was holding its breath. The grass crunched under my boots and each step sounded too loud, too sharp. The flashlight beam vanished into the mist a few feet ahead, as if swallowed whole. Then I saw something move. At first it looked like the shape of a building, just a faint outline in the distance. I blinked and it was gone. When I turned back toward my truck, it too had faded from sight. The fog was thicker now, swirling around me like smoke. And that's when I saw the street lamp. It flickered once, then steadied. Beneath it stood an old-fashioned mailbox, the paint worn to gray. It read, Main Street, Briar Hollow. I should have been miles away from any town. But there it was. One moment it wasn't there, the next it was. The mist parted slowly, revealing the rest of it. The outlines of buildings, narrow roads, porches, and faint lights glowing behind curtains. It was as if the entire town had materialized out of thin air, rebuilt from memory. I walked in, too stunned to be afraid. Everything looked frozen in time, like the town had been locked away for a century and only just returned. The air smelled faintly of old wood smoke and lilac. Somewhere, a phonograph played a slow, scratchy tune, barely audible beneath the hum of the street lamps. I passed a barber shop, a general store, a post office, all neat, all intact, but no people. Then from somewhere deeper in the fog, I heard footsteps. They were steady, deliberate, echoing against the cobblestones. I turned my light toward the sound, but there was no one there. Only the faint shimmer of something moving between the buildings, too quick to see. "Hello?" I called out. My voice felt swallowed by the mist. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a whisper right behind me, so close it brushed my ear. "Why did you come back?" I spun around, light cutting through empty air. Nothing, only the smell of something damp and earthy, like wet soil and old decay. I stumbled backward, heart pounding, and bumped into something solid. When I turned, I found myself staring at a man, or at least what looked like one. He was dressed in an old wool coat, hat low over his brow, his face pale as chalk. His eyes were hollow, no pupils, just the reflection of moonlight. "You shouldn't be here," he said in a flat, brittle voice. "The hollow doesn't welcome strangers on a full moon." I didn't mean to," I stammered. "I was driving and—" He shook his head slowly. "That's how it always begins." I blinked and he was gone. Just gone. The street was empty again, and the air felt heavier, thicker. I turned in circles trying to find my bearings. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell began to ring. Slow, measured tolls that rattled the ground beneath my feet. With every chime, the fog pulsed. Buildings seemed to warp, leaning in like they were breathing. The light from the lamps flickered, and I could swear I heard faint voices, dozens of them, chanting words I couldn't understand. Then the ground beneath my boots moved. The cobblestone cracked like thin ice, and I saw something, black and slick, sliding just below the surface. I ran. I don't remember which direction. I just ran until the mist broke apart and I saw the church. Its doors were open, light spilling out onto the steps. I dove inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air shifted. The fog didn't follow me in. The silence was so thick it pressed against my eardrums. Candles burned along the pews and an old Bible lay open on the altar. Someone was sitting in the front row. It was a woman, hair silver, skin thin and pale. She turned slowly as I entered, her eyes dull and watery. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "I'm sorry," I managed, my voice shaking. "I didn't know." "You'll know soon enough," she said. Her voice cracked. Then she looked past me, over my shoulder, and her expression twisted into pure terror. I turned. The man from before stood in the doorway, his hollow eyes fixed on me. Behind him, shadows moved, human shapes, dozens of them, crawling out of the mist. Their faces were blank, featureless, like wet clay trying to remember what it once was. "They've already smelled you," he said, "and once they smell you, you belong to the hollow." I stumbled backward, but the old woman grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "There's one way out," she hissed. "When the bell rings 13 times, not before. Do you hear me?" 13, I tried to ask what she meant, but the shadows were already moving closer, spilling into the church like smoke. The man turned and his body began to flake apart, ash scattering in the candlelight. The bell tolled again, louder this time. 7, 8, 9. The shadows crawled up the pews, faces forming and collapsing, hands stretching toward me. 10, 11. The air turned freezing. My skin burned with cold. 12. I closed my eyes, prayed to a God I hadn't spoken to in years, and ran for the door. 13. The moment the 13th bell rang, everything went silent. When I opened my eyes, I was standing on the side of the road again. The fog was gone. The town was gone. The sign still stood where I'd left it. Briar Hollow, Pop, 612. Except now someone had scratched something new beneath it. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat in the truck with the headlights off, staring at that sign until the dawn burned away the last of the fog. The birds started singing again, and the highway came back to life with the occasional rumble of a passing car. For a while, I convinced myself I'd imagined it all. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe the fog played tricks on my mind. But when I stepped out of the truck, I saw something that froze me to the bone. My boots were caked in mud, the kind of thick, dark soil you only find deep in farmland, and stuck to the sole of one boot was a piece of old newspaper, brittle and faded. It read, "Briar Hollow Residents Celebrate Harvest Fair, 1923. 1923, 31 years ago. That's when I knew I hadn't dreamed it. I tried to tell myself to move on, just keep driving, leave Kansas behind. But 3 nights later, when the full moon rose again, I found myself turning the truck around, heading back down that same road. I told myself it was just to prove I wasn't crazy, but in truth, something deeper was pulling me back, something that felt like gravity. When I reached the sign again, the moon was already high, glowing like a watchful eye, and just as before, the town began to appear, one streetlight at a time. The fog rolled in slow waves, peeling back to reveal the cobblestones, the houses, the church spire rising like a spear through the mist. This time, I didn't walk in right away. I waited, watched. The town seemed alive. Curtains fluttered. I could see silhouettes moving behind windows. Faint laughter, the flicker of lanterns. It looked normal, peaceful. And then as I stood there on the edge of the mist, a young boy ran across the street, a blur of motion, and stopped. He looked straight at me. He couldn't have been older than 8 or 9. His clothes were old-fashioned, suspenders, scuffed shoes, but clean. He smiled, waving as if I were someone he recognized. "Hey, mister," he shouted. "You came back." I opened my mouth to answer, but the words stuck, because behind him the world flickered, like a bad film reel stuttering through a projector. For a split second, the boy's face wasn't his. It was something else. Gray, hollow, stretched too thin. Then the flicker passed, and he was a boy again, smiling wide. "Mama said you would." "Who's your mama?" I asked. He tilted his head, like I'd asked him something strange. "Everybody's mama," he said. Then he ran off into the fog. The air turned heavy again. The kind of heavy that presses on your chest, makes your breath short. I stepped forward just once, and the sound beneath my boot wasn't dirt, it was water. The ground rippled. A cold dampness spread through my shoes. I crouched down, touched the cobblestones, and my fingers sank through them, like dipping into a shallow puddle. The street wasn't real, it was reflection, an image rippling on the surface of something deeper. I stumbled back, gasping, and the bell rang again. 1, 2, 3. The fog thickened, the light dimmed, and the faces began to appear in the windows. Pale, staring, unmoving. 4, 5. I ran. The buildings warped as I passed, porches twisting, windows stretching into open mouths. I could hear whispers rising from the ground, 100 voices speaking over one another. 6, 7. They weren't words. They were names, names I didn't know. 8, 9. I turned a corner and stopped dead. There, in the middle of the street, stood a mirror, tall as a doorway, framed in black iron, its surface rippling like water. My reflection was wrong. It was smiling. 10, 11. The ground trembled. The mirror began to hum. I felt the pull, like a current dragging me forward. My reflection's mouth moved. "You shouldn't have come back." 12. The reflection reached through the glass. Its fingers brushed my throat, cold as death. 13. The world went white. I woke to the sound of an engine idling. I was in my truck. The key was still in the ignition. The headlights pointed down the empty road. My hands were trembling. The moon was gone, the sky pale with dawn. But the mirror was there, lying in the passenger seat. Its surface was still, the glass cracked in the center. Beneath the crack, written in what looked like frost, were 3 words. "You brought it." I drove. I didn't care where. I just wanted distance. But no matter which direction I turned, every signpost I passed read the same. Briar Hollow, 2 miles. By the 3rd sign, I realized the road wasn't looping. The world was. I slammed on the brakes, stepped out, and looked around. The fields were gone. Only mist, endless, shifting mist that stretched forever. And in that silence, I heard the bell again. Only this time, it didn't stop at 13. It kept ringing. 14, 15, 16. The sound grew louder, deeper, until it felt like it was coming from inside my chest. I fell to my knees, clutching my head. The mirror in the truck began to rattle, the glass pulsing with light. Something moved inside it, a hand, then another, then a face, my own but older, the skin gray and sagging, eyes hollow and filled with water. "Stop," I begged. "Please stop." The reflection smiled. You can't stop what you started. You're one of us now. I staggered to my feet, heart hammering, and ran into the mist. The air turned freezing, burning my lungs. The sound of the bell faded behind me, replaced by the whisper of countless voices. When the fog finally broke, I was standing on asphalt again. Sunlight, the highway. My truck was gone. A passing car slowed beside me, a man leaning out the window. "You okay, fella?" "You look like hell," I nodded weakly. "Yeah, I think I am." He frowned. "You lost?" "There's not much out this way. Closest town is..." He squinted at his map. "Briar Hollow. About 2 miles west." My stomach turned. "Did you say Briar Hollow?" "Yeah," he said. "Nice little place, huh? Kind folks. They've got a harvest fair this weekend, I think. You from around here?" I just shook my head. He drove off, leaving a swirl of dust and exhaust in his wake. When I turned to look west, I saw the sign again, standing in the field like a gravestone. Briar Hollow, a pop, 614. I don't remember what happened next. I think I started walking. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe I was just tired. But I remember the feeling that came over me as I stepped closer to that sign. The pull, the quiet hum in my bones, like a magnet drawing me home. Because that's what it felt like now. Home. It's been 3 months since that night. I don't know how I got back to civilization. I woke up in a motel off Route 6, my clothes damp, my boots still caked in that same black mud. Sometimes I try to convince myself I imagined it all. But then I'll see things. Reflections in windows that don't match my movement. Or I'll wake in the middle of the night and hear the faint toll of a bell, miles away, under the sound of the wind. And each time the full moon rises, I dream of that town. I see the faces in the windows. The boy, the woman, the man with hollow eyes. And I know that one day I'll drive that road again, because no one ever leaves Briar Hollow. Not really. When the next full moon came, I didn't even fight it. I packed the truck, drove west through the fog, and when I reached the sign, the town was already there, waiting, glowing softly under the moonlight. The mirror lay across the passenger seat, whole again, the crack gone. I looked at my reflection one last time. It smiled back, eyes hollow, patient. Then I stepped out of the truck and walked toward the light. When the sun rose the next morning, the road was empty again. The sign now read, Briar Hollow, Pop 615.